Okay, we'll get started. It's after 6 o'clock. I'm just going to hand it over to Janice.
Thanks, Grace. Good evening. My name is Janice Fullerath. I'm an election coordinator with the city and the substitute returning officer for the 2025 municipal election. I'll be monitoring the chat and assisting with the Q&As. You will have noticed that you were all muted throughout the session. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box and we'll be answering those questions throughout the session. The chat function has been disabled. You can find the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, you may need to hover your mouse over it. If you want to be anonymous when you submit your question, you can do so by selecting anonymous. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Janice. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Marta Caulfield. She's the Director of Legal, Legislative, and Record Services, and she's the returning officer for the City of St. Albert 2025 municipal election.
Thanks, Grace and Janice, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming and welcome to our third candidate information session. I want to let everybody know that we do also have another panelist online. His name is Garnet Melnick. He's from Municipal Enforcement Services, and he'll be online to help us answer any election sign related questions later. And thank you, Garnet, for attending. Now, I'm just going to take a quick moment to cover a few housekeeping items. I don't intend to talk for the full hour. The plan is to leave plenty of time for questions for those who are attending this information session. The session is being recorded, as you would have heard at the beginning, and will be available on our election webpage for those who wish to either go back and rewatch or for those who are not able to attend today. As Janice mentioned, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box and we will be answering those during the Q&A portion of the session and also throughout. We're going to pause a few instances to see if there are any questions that pertain to the information that we covered on the slides. If we're unable to answer a question for you today, we'll endeavor to get the answer as soon as possible and email out the responses to the attendees as soon as possible after the session. If you think of any other questions after the session, you can contact the election office by emailing election@stalbert.ca. I did want to just provide a disclaimer at the outset that the information that's going to be provided in this presentation today does not constitute legal advice, and it's being provided as a courtesy and information to candidates for the general municipal election in 2025. It is all candidates' responsibility to make sure that they meet all legislative requirements and deadlines. So if candidates do have any questions that our election team didn't answer today or cannot answer, or you require more guidance than we're able to provide, then we do suggest that you seek independent legal advice on those matters. So we're going to get started. The topics that we're going to cover today are on the screen. As you can see, we will be covering the matters of campaign signage, so election signage, information related to financials and disclosures, and then we will have a period for questions at the end. There will be one more session in August. That will be our final candidate information session prior to the election. That session in August will cover various election day related information, such as voting stations and information related to those, information about scrutineers, information about counting of ballots, and other post-election matters. So in the first section, we're going to cover election campaign signs. Election signs are governed under the city's land use bylaw and traffic bylaw. Both bylaws are available on the city's website. Under the land use bylaw, an election sign is defined and means a sign connected with the holding of a federal, provincial, municipal government, or school board election. Election signs are a permitted use in all districts throughout the city, and no development permits are required, provided the signs comply with all sign regulations, which we will talk about in the next slides. It is important to mention that the Local Authorities Election Act, and that is the act that governs the running of municipal elections in the province of Alberta. I will sometimes refer to it as the Act or the LAEA. throughout this presentation. But that act stipulates that no campaign advertisements may depict a representation of a ballot, which is marked for any specific candidate. So this essentially means that all election signs cannot have anything that shows a check mark or an X being marked on a ballot next to a candidate's name. We'll start by talking about when election signs can be placed outside. Signs may only go up after 12 noon on September 22nd. And as you all know, September 22nd is nomination day, which is the nomination deadline. Signs must be removed from their spots within 48 hours after the close of voting stations or by 8 p.m. on October 22nd. In terms of sign requirements and size dimensions, the land use bylaw includes the following requirements. Signs must not be bigger than 3 square meters in sign area, and the maximum height is 3 meters. Furthermore, the signs must be self-supported or wall-mounted, and they cannot be self-illuminated. There are also special rules pertaining to signs that are placed along St. Albert Trail. Signs placed adjacent to St. Albert Trail must be a minimum dimension of 1.22 meters by 1.22 meters. Next, I'm going to speak about where signs may be placed. Signs can be placed on private property, such as private residences, and on commercial property. Signs may also be placed in the boulevards along the following roadways: Boudreaux Road, Campbell Road, Gervais Road, Giroux Road, Hebert, Levasseur, McKinney Avenue, St. Albert Trail, Sir Winston Churchill Avenue, and Sturgeon Road. There are some locations where signs are not permitted to be placed. So those places are within any closer than 30.5 meters away from an intersection. So signs have to be at least 30.5 meters away from an intersection. Signs must not be on or along any roadway or median, which includes Ray Gibbon Drive, unless you're expressly permitted to place a sign along that roadway by bylaw, which essentially means all the roadways that I just covered in the previous slide. Signs cannot be located on city-owned property or city-occupied facilities. Signs are not permitted within or outside of buildings where voting stations are located, and this means during the advance vote days and on election day. Signs cannot interfere with or be confused with or detract from or be placed on traffic control devices, municipal signs, or municipal devices, such as light poles, and cannot interfere with vehicle or pedestrian sightlines. It's also important to know that signs must be a minimum of 5 meters away from hydrants or other emergency use equipment. Signs must be located 20 meters or more from an election sign for the same candidate or the same side of a referendum question. Signs cannot be attached, painted onto sidewalks or trails, on a highway decal, public building, and cannot be attached or on a vehicle or trailer. So before we move on, I'm going to pause here. That brings us to the end of the portion of the presentation today related to election signs. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions related to election signs.
There's no questions in the chat yet.
Okay, no problem. I'll move on. We will have more opportunity for questions later. So next, I will cover the financials and disclosure portion of the presentation today. We briefly discussed campaign finances in the March information session. However, I wanted to review a few important points again. The campaign period for the 2025 municipal election runs from October 31st. Oh, sorry, Janice, did you want to ask the question?
Sure, yeah, one pop
Sure.
in the chat. Thanks, Marta. So
Yeah.
there is a question. It is that signs must be 20 meters apart, question mark.
Yeah, that's a good question. So within the last year or two, the traffic bylaw was amended to state that election signs for the same candidate must be at least 20 meters apart. So you have to have at least 20 meters between your signs. And the thinking was, the philosophy behind it was that this will prevent having the clog of signs, and it will be better for the environment because there will be less signs on the roadways, but it's balanced with making sure that candidates are still able to get their signs up and their name out there. So it is a new rule. It did not apply in the 2021 election, but for clarity, just to reiterate, you have to make sure that your signs are at least 20 meters apart from themselves. It's a good question.
Okay, looks like we're good to move on.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just continue on with the financials and disclosures. So the campaign period for the 25 municipal election runs from October 31st of 2024 until December 31st of 2025. And candidates can raise funds to support their election campaigns. Candidates must become familiar with Part 5.1, which is called Election Finances and Contributions Disclosure of the LAEA. The duties of candidates are listed in section 147.3 of that act. And it's probably a good idea to familiarize yourself with the duties that are listed there. A candidate must submit their notice of intent before accepting campaign contributions or incurring expenses, such as business cards, paper, brochures, signs, etc. And a bank account must be opened in the candidate's name. And I'm just reading it directly from the legislation now. At the time the candidate gives written notice, their notice of intent, or as soon as possible afterwards, after contributions first exceed $1,000. Money in the campaign account shall only be used for payment of campaign expenses, and candidates must issue a receipt for every contribution in a form acceptable to the City of St. Albert. Details about the receipts that the City of St. Albert will accept are available on the city's website. Candidates must make sure that they keep records of contributions and campaign expenses for at least 3 years following the day of the election. So this slide here is also being provided again. It was provided at the March information session, but to reiterate, the contribution limits in terms of how much individuals and corporations can contribute to campaigns has changed since the last municipal election. So here's a chart that explains the new limits. Candidates can self-finance $10,000 per campaign period for both municipal candidates and school board candidates. Individuals may contribute $5,000 per year to all candidates in a particular municipality. And they may also contribute $5,000 per year to all candidates of a particular public school division, and likewise $5,000 per year to all candidates of a particular separate school division. Corporations, trade unions, or employee organizations can contribute $5,000 per campaign period to all candidates in a particular municipality. And likewise, they may contribute $5,000 in the aggregate during the campaign period to all candidates of a particular public school division, and $5,000 in the aggregate during the campaign period to all candidates of a separate school division. Each individual person is responsible to know if they are an eligible contributor and what their contribution limits are. Every candidate and every person acting on behalf of a candidate shall make every reasonable effort to advise prospective contributors of these contribution provisions that are found in the LAEA. And I just wanted to clarify or to point out that when we talk about individuals and corporations, trade unions, or employee organizations, it's those who are ordinarily resident in Alberta. So candidates are not able to raise funds or accept funds from those that do not normally reside in Alberta. A campaign contribution includes any contribution made to a candidate that is money, personal property, real property, or service that is provided to or for the benefit of a candidate's election campaign without fair market value compensation from that candidate, including payments on loans and fundraising functions. This does not include volunteer services such as campaign workers who do door-to-door knocking on campaigns. Candidates may choose to raise funds from individuals, to self-fund, or both. Again, contributions can only be accepted and expenses may be incurred once a candidate files a notice of intent and a bank account must be opened in the candidate's name. It should be noted that contributions to municipal candidates and campaigns are not tax deductible. Finally, please note that individuals can only contribute their own funds to a candidate. Individuals cannot contribute funds to a candidate that do not belong to that individual. I think this will be mentioned a little bit later in the presentation, but I did want to mention that campaign expense limits, so how much a candidate can spend on expenses, those expense limits are governed by a separate regulation that is made pursuant to the LAEA, which is called the Expense Limits Regulation. It says that during the year of a municipal election, no candidate may incur campaign expenses that exceed $72,316, which is the calculation based on the formula in the regulation. It's $1 per resident of the city of St. Albert. But please note that any campaign expenses exceeding $50,000 have additional requirements for disclosures, which I'll mention a little bit later, pursuant to the LAEA. Candidates are required to submit a campaign disclosure statement and a financial statement, which is found on Form 26. Candidates must not knowingly make a false or misleading statement in any disclosure or financial statement. Recent changes made to the Local Authorities Election Act regarding campaign disclosure statements are requiring candidates to submit their disclosure statements as follows. There are now 2 disclosure times for candidates in the year of an election. So firstly, on or before March 1st of every year, a candidate who has received contributions in the previous year must file a disclosure statement in respect of the previous year. And this is the change. This is the addition that was just recently made by Bill 54. On or before September 30th of a year in which a general election is to be held, a candidate who has received contributions in the period beginning on January 1st and ending on July 31st of that year must also file a disclosure statement in respect of that period. So to summarize, the 2 deadline dates for disclosure statements for this year are September 30th, 2025, for candidates who have received contributions or incurred expenses between January 1st and July 31st of 2025. And then also March 1st, 2026, for candidates who have received contributions or incurred expenses in the previous year, which will cover the period from January 1st to December 31st, 2025. Both deadlines apply to all candidates, including those who only filed a notice of intent, including those who withdrew as a candidate, who became disqualified or ineligible, or who were not elected. Under the Local Authorities Election Act, candidates must disclose the following total contributions received and expenses incurred. The total amount of contributions that did not exceed $50 from any single contributor. Total amounts contributed, together with names and addresses, whose contributions during the year exceeded $50. An itemized list of all campaign expenses. Total contributions out of candidates' own funds. Total amounts from fundraising events. Total amounts from other revenues. Total amount of money paid by the candidate out of the candidate's own funds in the year not reimbursed from their campaign fund. And total amount of any campaign surpluses for the campaign period, including any surpluses from previous campaigns, and or total amount of any deficit in the campaign period. I'll just move on to the next slide. Candidates who incur campaign expenses or receive contributions of $50,000 or more must file a review engagement by a chartered professional accountant with their disclosure statement. Review engagements are defined in the Chartered Professional Accountants Act. A candidate must submit a supplementary statement in the prescribed form to the city if any of the information reported in the disclosure statement has changed or is inaccurate. Finally, candidates who fail to file a campaign disclosure statement within the specified time period must pay a $500 late filing fee. Failure to file a disclosure statement within the legislated timelines is reason for disqualification and could impact eligibility to become a candidate in future elections. Candidates should definitely familiarize themselves with the campaign disclosure requirements, receipts, and expenses that are outlined in the Local Authorities Election Act. And then in these next slides, we'll go over the disclosure form and take you through how to record contributions and expenses. So the form is called Form 26, and on the first part of this form, candidates must provide the calendar year of disclosure. They must provide their full legal name and full mailing address, which should match the information that was provided on Form 4, which was the nomination papers and candidates' acceptance. Please note that the St. Albert is required to and will publish a redacted version of each filed Form 26. The candidate's mailing address will be redacted, which means it will be blacked out, so the public cannot see that part of the disclosure form. Next on the form is where you record the campaign contributions. Line 1 is for the aggregate of contributions received, which were $50 or less. So if you received 3 contributions of $50, you would record $150 in line 1. Line 2 is for the aggregate of contributions received, which were over $50. So for example, if you received 3 contributions of $100, you would record $300 on line 2. You would also need to include a list of those contributors' names and their addresses because they contributed more than $50, and that is one of the requirements under the LAEA. As well as financial donations, candidates need to include the real market value of in-kind contributions, such as the use of property or a professional service, for example, like a web design service, which must be included in this section. Candidates should use the 3rd page of Form 26 to accompany the amount indicated in line 2 of this form. Use multiple copies of the supplementary page if necessary. I'll just go on to the next slide. Yeah, so as you can see, candidates must return contributions that were received anonymously or from those who do not meet the eligibility criteria that was described on the chart, which is further delineated in section 147.2 of the LAEA. Line 3 is where you would record any contributions which were returned. And then line 3 is deducted from the amounts in lines 1 and 2, and the net contributions are recorded in line 4. Under other sources, this is where you would record any total self-funded contributions in line 5, total net amounts from fundraising events, if any, in line 6, any transfers of surpluses or deficits from previous campaigns, if any, in line 7, and any other revenue sources which are not listed above in line 8. Total other revenue sources are added to total contributions to calculate the total campaign period revenue. The final part of the disclosure form is where candidates must disclose the total expenditures incurred during the campaign period. The candidate must record total paid and unpaid expenditures. Remember that an itemized account of expenditures must be included with the disclosure form. Hi, Janice, do you have a question?
Yep, there's a question in the chat. So if I have designed my own website on a free platform, do I have to state the fee I personally paid for the domain where that page ended up being displayed?
Well, I think what you're asking for is real specific advice. I can tell you from an information perspective that that does sound like a campaign expense. So I would suggest listing it as a campaign expense on the disclosure statement. However, you may want to talk to somebody else who can actually advise you about that. But in terms of that circumstance related to what the legislation says, it does sound like it would fit under the umbrella of what is intended to be included as a campaign expense.
Thank you.
I think there's another one. Did another one just pop up? Or should I keep going?
No, that was just a response to your answer.
Okay.
They'll look further into it, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, the candidate must record total paid and unpaid expenditures. So remember that an itemized account of expenditures must be included with the disclosure form. Such as a website design, for example, should be included on that form. Finally, you'll deduct your total expenditures from the total revenue on the form to determine if you have a campaign surplus or a deficit. Candidates must take action to address a surplus or deficit within 60 days of filing Form 26. Campaign surpluses are governed by Section 147.5 of the Local Authorities Election Act. And that section states that if candidates have less than $1,000 in a surplus, candidates can retain all or any portion of that amount and donate all or any portion to a registered charity. If candidates have $1,000 or more, candidates must donate that amount to a registered charity. Sorry, they must donate the amount that would bring the surplus to less than 1,000 to a registered charity. Candidates who donate all or a portion of their surplus must file an amended disclosure that confirms that their surplus has been addressed. If you have a campaign deficit, you'll be looking at Section 147.52 of the Local Authorities Election Act, which says that candidates may continue to accept contributions to eliminate a deficit, including self-funded contributions. Contribution limits apply to those received during the period after the election to eliminate a deficit. Candidates must also file an amended disclosure that confirms that their deficit has been eliminated. Finally, the last part of the form is where candidates must sign and date and submit the form along with any attachments to the city. And this form must be submitted again twice, once by September 30th, 2025, for those candidates who had contributions and expenses from January 1st to July 31st. And then once again by March 1st, 2026, to include all contributions and expenses for the previous year, January 1 to December 31, 2025. Go ahead, Janice.
Okay, question is, do we accept a tax receipt for funds donated to a charity?
I'm actually not sure of the answer to that question. That's a good question. I wonder if we can take it away. Do you know the answer, Janice?
I don't. I think that would be a question more suitable for your accountant to find out if you can do that, but I'm not sure of the answer.
Yeah, so we'll endeavor to check with municipal affairs. We haven't come across anything related to that in our materials or in the legislation, so I'm not sure what the answer is. We'll endeavor to look and ask municipal affairs, and if they give us an answer, then we will email everybody what municipal affairs said with respect to that. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. That does bring us to the end of our portion on campaign disclosures and statements. There will be a question period at the end, but if there are any thoughts percolating about this topic right now, I'll just give it a second to see if there are any further questions. Otherwise, I'll just continue. I'll go over some of the resources that are available for the candidates, and then we can have the kind of general question period at the end. Okay, I see Janice popping up. No more questions. Okay, thanks, Janice. So I just wanted to show everybody the resources that are available on our election webpage. So there are the first two resources, and again, this is a summary provided at the earlier information sessions, but I'll just provide it again right now. We have a link to the Municipal Government Act on our website, as well as the Local Authorities Election Act. We have provided a link to the expense limits regulation. There is a link to the 2025 candidate handbook. There's a link to the Municipal Affairs Election website, which is being constantly updated by the province, just with respect to the changes that have been made to the provincial legislation. And then there are also 3 municipal bylaws that govern or may be of interest to candidates. There's the municipal elections bylaw, the land use bylaw, and the traffic bylaw. I'm also going to quickly go over some of the important dates for candidates to remember. Again, this information is located on our website, but just to refresh everyone's memory, we are in the campaign period right now. It started on October 31st of last year and will continue until December 31st of this year. Nomination period started the beginning of this year and will last until nomination day, which is September 22nd, 2025 at noon, which means that is the close of nominations. Any nomination papers not received by 12 o'clock on the dot will not be accepted. Candidates have 1 day, 24 hours, so until noon on September 23rd to withdraw nomination papers. September 30th is the first campaign disclosure statement deadline. Again, for those candidates who receive contributions or incur expenses from January 1st to July 31st. Our advance voting days are October 14th to October 18th. Election day will be on October 20th. The official results are due to the province on October 24th by noon. And then mandatory council orientation starts for all elected councillors on October 24th and continues initially until, I think it's around November 3rd or 5th. It's still being worked out, but starts October 24th. So about November 5th for the first part, and then again later from November 21st to 28th. November 3rd will be the first council meeting. It's called inaugural meeting of council and is also the organizational meeting where the seats for councillors are selected. The schedule for the council meetings is approved for the following year. And then from November 12th to 14th will be the 2025 Alberta Municipalities Convention, which is being held in Calgary this year, and which most councillors newly elected usually try to attend. And then March 1st, 2026 is the campaign disclosure statement deadline for the disclosure for the entire previous year. Finally, before I move on to the final question period portion. Oh, sorry, Janice, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat. How many days do you expect the hand count to take before results are available?
We hope to be done counting by the time that the official results are due to the province on Friday at noon. We're doing our best right now to, and I can turn this over to Janice, but we're doing our best right now to come up with to make sure we find the best counting methodology that is the most accurate. Our primary concern is to make sure that the count is accurate. Secondly, we want the count to be as efficient as possible, but primarily we're worried about accuracy. So we don't know. It will depend on how many ballots we get, how many election workers we have, how many people show up to vote. All of those factors are really hard to predict. So we're just making some assumptions right now. I think we will be done by Friday at noon, but it's really difficult to say any earlier than that we will be finished by then. We will release the results as soon as we have them. But like if we have them before Friday at noon, we will release them. We're not going to hold them, but I'm unable to provide a more firm timeline than that. Janice, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that you've provided the information. We are looking at getting some more information about the count process as soon as we have it totally nailed down, and we've tested it. We've tested different methods several times. We're going to be doing more testing to check for all the efficiencies and accuracies, and then once we have our methods, we'll be sharing that with the public, and then we'll be able to answer more questions about the count. But just like Marta said, it's going to depend on how many ballots, it's going to depend on how many workers we have to count ballots. And yeah, we'll just do our best to make sure that we get everything done as accurately as possible and as efficiently as possible.
We do expect to have more information available at our next and last candidate information session related to all things election day, including more information about the manual count. So I will plug it right now. It's scheduled for August 28th. You'll be able to register for it. And we do hope to be able to have a bit more information, at least about the counting method and how it will work and how the count will work at that time. So as a reminder, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you have questions, if candidates have questions of the election team, to please make sure that you understand that our election office which consists of the people on this call, so it's myself and Janice and Grace, our team can provide information to candidates, but we can't provide advice to you directly with respect to how to proceed. So if you have any questions after today's session, we suggest that you review the legislation, so both provincial and municipal, review the information on our website and on the Alberta Municipal Affairs website. And you can contact us by emailing election@stalbert.ca, and we will do our best to provide all the general information we're able to provide to you. More information will be provided in due course to candidates regarding how to ask questions of city administration regarding city business and city processes between nomination day and election day. So for that period between September 22nd and October 20th, there will be a process for how candidates are able to submit questions to administration. Once that's all finalized, we will make sure that candidates know. So before we go into the final round of questions, I did want to just take the time to thank everybody once again for attending and or listening to the information provided in this information session. I would turn it over to you to ask any questions at this time. So as you're aware, you just type your question into the Q&A box. And if you want your question to be anonymous, you can check anonymous and it won't put your name next to it. And as a reminder, if you have any questions after the close of this session, just email our team, election@stalbert.ca. I think we have one question that we weren't able to answer. We said we will look into it. We'll contact Municipal Affairs about the tax receipt situation. And if we find out any information about that, we'll email it out to the attendees and put it on our FAQ page. That brings me to the end. I have nothing further. Maybe I'll just give it another couple minutes. Nothing else, hey? Okay. There's no reason to belabor it. Oh, we see one.
Oh, we just have a thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for attending. We do appreciate it. And this recording will be available. So if you did want to listen to the information again, it will be available on the website as soon as we can get it posted. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.